Republican Congressman Steve Scalise, he was in front of reporters and sat there and lied about the involvement that Donald Trump had with Ukraine President Zelensky on that perfect phone call that we heard about so many times. So when he was asked about this phone call where he got impeached over trying to extort Zelensky for some dirt on Biden's, this is what Scalise had to say.
Look back a little bit, given where we are right now, what rethinking have you done on President Trump's withholding of military aid to Zelensky as he pressured him to investigate Joe Biden and Hunter Biden?
Well, first of all, and you look at that conversation, President Zelensky had called President Trump to thank him for the leadership that he provided. In fact, when Zelensky got elected, he said he modeled his campaign after President Trump's. And ultimately, he got the relief money that he was asking for. If you go back to when Joe Biden was vice president, he bragged about how he withheld $1 billion in aid to Ukraine when Joe Biden was vice president, because he said he wanted a prosecutor to get fired, who ultimately, from reports we saw, was fired. But President Trump stood with President Zelensky, and in fact, the two of them had a really good relationship. And when President Zelensky was asking for things like Javelin missiles that the Biden and Obama administration said no to, President Trump said yes and actually helped Ukraine get those tank-busting missiles that they needed and frankly they've been using. They could have surely used some of those surface-to-air missiles that they were asking for just a few months ago that President Biden said no to.
Well, the first thing is that Steve Scalise here is doing the Nikki Haley from a couple days ago when she's like, well, President Trump tried to do all these things. He tried to undermine American interests. He tried to assist Vladimir Putin. He tried to do all these things, but it didn't work out for him. So I'm not talking about things that he tried to do. I'm talking about things he did. Well, he released that aid to Ukraine after he was called out for it, after he was exposed, after he was impeached. So give him credit for someone actually doing something opposite of what they planned to do and what they actually did on that perfect phone call is not much of a defense. In fact, what was in that perfect phone call again that Trump was always bragging about? Watch.
Congratulating Zelensky for his election victory, and midway through the call says this, quote, I would like to ask you to do us a favor, though, because our country has been through a lot and Ukraine knows a lot about it. I would like you to find out what happened with this whole situation with Ukraine. They say CrowdStrike. I guess you have one of your wealthy people, the server. They say Ukraine has it. Now, frankly, it's hard to tell exactly what the president means, but perhaps he is thinking that somebody in Ukraine has one of the missing Clinton email servers. And then there's one reference to Biden in this call. Trump says this, he says, I heard you had a prosecutor who was very good and was shut down, which is really unfair. And then he says, quote, there's a lot of talk about Biden's son, what Biden stopped the prosecution. And a lot of people want to find out about that. So whatever you can do with the attorney general would be great. Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution. So if you can look into it, it sounds horrible to me.
It's a lot of insinuations, a lot of leaning on Zelensky there. Hey, if you could just work with my people to make sure we get this dirt on Joe Biden without saying dirt and without saying, hey, for my elections, maybe I can skirt around these issues. I can go ahead and get by on it. So I think it's pretty obvious who's why Scalise is defending Trump in the face of reality.
Yeah, I just watching these clips, I feel like I'm back in like 2019. I don't know. I never thought some of these characters would resurface. I haven't thought about Steve Scalise in a long time. But it is like interesting. Of course, the concept of a perfect phone call is hysterical on its face and great content. But just the whole scenario, like, because Zelensky played such an important side role in the impeachment of Donald Trump, the first impeachment of Donald Trump, and he was sort of characterized as, someone who is fearful in a unfortunate position. Of course, you kind of have to, when you need these arms or you need these trade deals, you sort of have to capitulate. But like sort of a weak character, and now he's, presented himself in a very different way, as a leader during this, and he's being recognized.
Now he's a badass. He's a war guy. And yeah. But you'll see how the narrative about him changes so much. And that's part of what Donald Trump was seeing. He was thinking, he's like, and anytime Trump mentions the United States or America wants this, he means I do. Because he thinks he is America. He thinks he's the representation. Anything he wants is what the country should want because he controls everything. That's in his mindset. So these code words and this way that he leaned on him was pretty obvious. And I think Zelensky understood what he was saying there. And it's why then these things happened after all those things that Scalise was defending him over and Nikki Haley's defended him over. It's because he was busted. Let's keep it real. And then you guys are the only ones there to make sure that you shielded him from any consequences. That's just how this whole thing works.
Sorry, really quick. Busted is a very good descriptive word for Donald Trump.
Absolutely busted.